Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to round 21 of our F1 25 My Team career mode. Yes, we're back this weekend here for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Of course, if you missed out on the video that went live yesterday from Mexico, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. We had another race inside this game of changeable conditions and it didn't go well for us. Annoyingly, I pit back to dries a little bit too early, burnt out my tyres before the end of the race, and ultimately paid the price when all is said and done then. But if we take a look at our World Championship, with just 4 races to go, plus 2 sprints, 10 points in it between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc at the top of the table. Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, still with a mathematical outside shot at the crown. But yeah, plenty still to be decided before the end of the year. Ferrari, they're looking pretty safe in the Constructors, a 104-point lead ahead of McLaren as well. We are locked into battles still with Andrea, Kimi, Antonelli, Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, the best of the rest this season. Aston Martin as well now have a 3-point buffer over ourselves in the Constructors' Championship, so we need to do everything we can to try and finish ahead of them by the end of the year. But of course, this weekend, with it being a sprint, we've got a lot of racing to get through. As always, timestamps will be linked down below, and if you want early access to all these videos, you can click the join button. It costs just £1 a month. You get early access to all the videos, as well as a couple of other little perks as well. But well, very quickly though, before we head actually here to Interlagos, I forgot to mention that we've actually had some huge R&D changes ready for next season. So it looks like it's going to affect the chassis and the powertrain side of things. Basically, every single power unit upgrade I've done this season is going to have to be re-sorted out ready for Season 2. And also the chassis department, it's only a few of the parts need to be tweaked ready for the new season as well. So yeah, some major rule changes coming in for next year. Hopefully that will kind of answer your guys' questions about how rule changes work inside F1 25 as well. But yeah, now let's return to Interlagos.
It's a Saturday showdown. Anyone fancy some hot laps around Interlagos? It's qualifying day here for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix.
I mean, you can barely get your foot to the floor anywhere around this circuit. It does definitely feel a lot more slippery than it did inside F1 24. Luckily, our pace through Sector 2 seems to pretty much be even with the AI. It's just trying to drain battery on the run back towards the start-finish line. We definitely need to use more of it. But Liam Lawson does a 1:22.2. We will only do a 23.5, and that leaves us slowest. Oh no, we've come back out onto the track, but I'm not convinced we've had enough time there. The AI just letting a couple of the other runners through, and I don't think we're going to have enough to get another lap started here. I've opted for the intermediates. We're going to have to drain the battery. It's not going to be enough time. By the time we got back into the pit lane, got a fresh set of tyres on, we're going to be lining up last for the sprint. And maybe it's a bit like F1 24, where the sprint race is basically a practice run here at Interlagos because the AI are rapid. Well, there we are. Tsunoda fastest ahead of Hamilton and Lando Norris by the end of Q1. Both of our cars, both V-carbs, Hulkenberg and Ollie Behrman all out as well, but 9/10 away from Dennis Hauger. It's the second weekend in a row our teammates out-qualified us.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. We're racing today then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3. That gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Hamilton, Russell, Yuki Tsunoda and Norris, Antonelli, Piastri, Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, Gasly, Doohan, Carlos Sainz and Albon, Stroll, Bortoletto, Ollie Behrman and Nico Hulkenberg, Lawson, Hadja, Halga and Callum Voisin rounds off the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint. Well, it's been a long time since I last worked with you. Good to see you again today. Anthony Davidson. Well, we celebrated their first appearance on the grid. Let's look back now at what has been a really good first season for our new team.
Yeah, they've made it through the entire season in Formula 1, Crofty. No mean feat at all. And they've learnt a lot this season. They can take that knowledge into next year to hopefully have an even better season.
Well, very, very interesting there, Crofty and Anthony Davidson, both talking about how we've survived an entire season. Clearly, they're both giving it up with 4 races to go because, yeah, there is still plenty more racing and plenty more that can change before the end of the campaign. Just like F124, then, it looks like the medium tyre is going to be your best friend here at Interlagos. You do not want to use a set of softs as we head into Sprint Saturday. 5 red lights are on, 12 laps ahead of us. Oh, and it is going to be lights out, and away we go there. Immediately get the jump on our teammate on the run in towards turn 1. Can we try and have a look to the inside of Isaac Hadjar even in towards that first corner as well? Yes, we can. And actually gaining a couple of places. They're all 3 wide on the exit. We're going to get a little bit barrel out, try and jump back onto the circuit as best as we can. Because I think we were 3 wide there with both of the V-carbs of the start of the GP, then plunging down the Esquina Lago in towards turn 4. Ollie Behrman trying to make a move on Nico Hulkenberg. It looks like Lance Stroll struggled off the launch as well. I noticed Fernando Alonso had qualified right up near the points in P9, so I'm hoping he's not able to score today then, as Verstappen obviously wants to keep his title hopes alive. Looks like he's claimed the lead on lap 1 here, as to the outside of Lance Stroll we will go. Actually made up quite a few spots on this opening lap, so I don't think we can complain about that as well. Albon and Carlos Sainz there wheel to wheel just up in front. Brazil often delivers great battles there, as we will go for a very audacious move, but down the inside of Nico Hulkenberg, and we're up 5 places on the opening lap. But it seems like maybe the AI have been slightly pegged back from their ridiculous speed we saw at Brazil on F124. As we always said, they had enough kind of sticking power through the corners that you couldn't gain much on them, but then had way too much straight line speed. It did kind of ruin a lot of Brazilian Grand Prix there as well, down the inside of Ollie Behrman. You know, we've got to go for it early on. Well, Kobayashi tributes coming out absolutely everywhere there as well. Look at that, Behrman actually getting a fight back through the S's of Sector 2, all of these switchback hairpin corners. But we will finally firmly cement ourselves up and into P16. Looks like Ferrari, though, both their drivers making a run or pass Verstappen. Let's not forget they've won the last 2 Grand Prix back-to-back, as Lewis Hamilton, obviously again, an honorary Brazilian citizen, of course. He would love to win his final Sao Paulo race this weekend. A lot of mixed emotions, though, for Lewis here. Of course, championships have been won and lost here in Brazil. But I guess with so much rainfall meant to be hitting the circuit tomorrow, this sprint race can't even be used as kind of like a proper tyre wear practice run or anything like that either. We just have got no idea what's going to happen as we head into the Grand Prix, as our Bortoletto, I think, has been struggling to hold off Carlos Sainz over these last couple of laps, and now is really vulnerable as Sainz trying to have a look around the outside through the Senna S. I'm sure I know who the Brazilians are going to be cheering on here, as could we potentially have a look. Oh, I thought about it to the inside there, down the bottom of the Esquina del Lago. Bortoletto definitely struggling towards the end of this race there as well. We will find an avenue to the inside, up through Ferradura, up then into P15 we will go. And a beautiful little move completed. Keeping up with the Williams as best as I can. Sainz might just lose the DRS to Albon, and that would allow us an opportunity. Well, 1 lap to go then of this sprint race. I've got no idea which Ferrari it is that is absolutely dominating this out front, but clearly the other one made a mistake somewhere, or has just dropped back maybe with some front wing damage, because they are not going to bag the 1-2 that looked likely early on in the GP. Annoying little mistake there at the final corner, and I think that's cost us the DRS against Carlos Sainz here, so we need to try and use all of our battery so they're not going to be too vulnerable to Ollie Behrman behind. The Hatsman has kept up very well late on in this race. There is to the inside. Oh, we'll go Ollie Behrman. Had a couple of good battles with him this year, and it looks like we could be on for another one today. So we're just struggling with the rear tyre temperature ever so slightly on that rear right. So we've got to be a bit careful with that. As here comes Behrman again then. Down the Esquina de Largo.
1.6 seconds.
Yeah, we've definitely cooked those rear tyres just a little bit towards the end of the GP, as I think Bortoletto went far too aggressively as well in the sprint race here. He's dropped behind Hulkenberg, and I think he's going to drop behind Lance Stroll by the end of the race as well. But as always, a sprint here is all about learning, ready for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Ferrari, though, are going to be on top yet again. Which of their cars is it going to be out of the final corner? It is Lewis Hamilton on top here in Brazil, desperate to try and keep his championship hopes alive. Charles Leclerc must have picked up front wing damage or had some kind of issue with the car as well this weekend. But out of the final corner, is Ollie Behrman going to be able to get a run on us back towards the line? We are going to be drag racing to the checkered flag here in Sao Paulo. Will Ollie get us wheel to wheel? We just hang on. Well, there we are then, taking a look at our sprint race results. Lewis Hamilton 6 seconds clear of George Russell come the checkered flag. Max Verstappen in P3 ahead of Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc there. Annoying for us that Alonso has been able to pick up even more points, finishing ahead of Tsunoda and Andrea Kimi Antonelli as well. What does that do to our standings, though? Well, it means, yeah, Alonso now ahead of Antonelli. We are 6 points back behind the Spaniard and 6 points behind Aston Martin in the Constructors. Luckily, though, Hassan Williams failed to score here. 4 points in it between McLaren and Red Bull. That is looking very tight towards the end of the year. But Ferrari, I believe mathematically, could wrap up the Constructors today if they bag a 1-2 in the GP. Well, at the moment then, we need to find about another half a second here if we want to just see Q2. That, of course, is not factoring in, though, whether the AI are going to improve right towards the end of qualifying as well. So let's just see if we can try and get another good lap on the board.
Rain in 10 minutes.
How wet is this weekend here in Brazil? It's ridiculous how much rain is meant to be rolling around Sao Paulo, but a much nicer line through turn 1. That immediately buys about a tenth and a half. And we will get to carry that speed all the way down in towards turn 4 there. Really try to attack the curb. Seems to be a little bump on the inside now that is upsetting the balance of the car a bit more. Perhaps it's just, obviously, with how different the cars now react inside F1 25 than they did on 24 there. But a little bit wide on the exit of Ferradura. Trying to thread the car through sector 2 nice and early on the throttle. Easy does it as we make our way back up the circuit then. Of course, before we plunge down in towards these final couple of turns, I need to remember to get on the battery as early as I can out of this final turn there, out of Zhong Sao. See, we're a tenth and a half down on Nico Hulkenberg. Even Helga's improved and gone quicker than us. Disappointing for Gabriel Bortoletto. Looks like he's going to be starting this one from the rear of the field. We are going to find about half a second. Only good enough, though, for P19. So, again, we just seem to be struggling a bit around this place. And there we go, Yuki Tsunoda dipping into the 106s then nice and early in Q1, just ahead of Andrea Kimi Antonelli and George Russell there. Any major shocks out in that first session? Lance Stroll almost out in Q1, Fernando Alonso only down in P12. Bortoletto, yeah, 4 tenths away from Dennis Hauger. That is a disappointing outing for the Brazilian. He's going to be attempting a last question mark challenge.
Formula One returns to Interlagos once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his 3rd championship here in 2012, and just 4 years later, Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. We're racing today then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3. That gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Norris, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and Piastri. Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Gasly, and Alex Albon. Doohan, Ocon, Ollie Behrman and Tsunoda, Stroll, Russell, Liam Lawson and Nico Hülkenberg, Voisin, Hauger, Hadja and Gabriel Bortoletto rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway.
Well, here we are then down on the grid, ready for the Brazilian Grand Prix, of course. The sprint race yesterday, I think, went alright, but there was definitely more progress that needed to be made. But look at that rain falling very, very early on in the GP, and then it's just meant to get heavier and heavier before it stops. So, a bit like Mexico this week and last weekend, this is going to be a bit of a trial by fire for us. We've got to keep learning from our mistakes. We've got to figure out F125. The 5 red lights are on, and it's going to be lights out, and away we go. They're off to a fairly clean and tidy start on the run in towards turn 1. Can we try and have a look down the inside of a couple of drivers there? We'll try and make something happen as Tsunoda, one of our many drivers that took some grid penalties, is around the outside of George Russell, who was another there, getting a little bit of a bounce over the curbing. And we're going to go wheel to wheel then down the Esquito Largo in towards turn 4. Or George, I think just for a moment, wanted to try and cover me off, but luckily we will hang firm there and actually gain the place. So making up a couple of spots then early on. Looks like Verstappen has immediately tried to spring into an early lead here, but of course, yeah, wasn't able to convert pole position in the sprint race yesterday. Is all 3 wide as Russell, another aggressive look to the inside. Lance Stroll and I having to kind of jump out the way there, and I think I could see there was a little bit of front wing damage on the Mercedes then, so I think, yeah, it was a little bit overzealous trying to look for that move on lap 1 as we plunge down the hill then to complete this first lap of the GP. Very, very happy with the progress we made. The only annoying bit is, again, Alonso running up in P6, and, you know, the Aston Martin, they are building momentum.
At least another 10 minutes until this rain evens out. Stay alert out there.
Well, there you go. So the team, yep, reckon as well that rain is going to get heavier and heavier over the next few laps, as George Russell did have to dive into the pit lane at the end of lap 1. I guess now then we're going to be waiting for when the DRS is disabled for our time to pit, as Ollie Behrman ever so slightly earlier on the brakes than myself. We just about get it slowed down. That could have been really bad.
Weather's turning. We think it's time to box now.
Yep, that's definitely, I agree with them. Are we going to see anybody else in? Yes, we do. Pierre Gasly. Oh, a load of cars pouring into the pit lane then. Doohan forced to stay out there, but yeah, a load of us diving in then, but not any of our front runners. Clearly the game didn't believe the conditions are kind of changed enough. But I mean, yeah, we're double stacking down at 2-2 Motorsport, so I think we're definitely going to see a load of guys in. Pierre Gasly, though, he could be in a really good shot here to try and jump right towards the front of the order. Come on, we need a quick stop. There we go. We've gained loads of spots. Up to P13 then. Kimi Antonelli dropping down slightly.
Exit will receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track.
But surely those guys that stayed out an extra lap here, they're going to be sitting ducks as we try and work an undercut. In fact, we might even get ourselves up into the top 10. We somehow jumped Yuki Tsunoda here. So cannot complain about that. But let's have a look then. Where is Pierre Gasly going to appear on the mini-map then, as everybody else makes their way through the final corners? He's up to P4. So Pierre Gasly then has been given an absolute lifeline in this GP. Which McLaren was struggling as well? I don't know. It's Oscar Piastri then. So World Championship leader Lando Norris still getting the priority pit stop there. Is all Tsunoda tried to turn in on me through the S's, and yes, we are up then inside your top 10 here, as Jack Doohan going to come back out onto the circuit as well. Yeah, Gasly's been one of the big winners. There's still a Ferrari out there. No idea if that's Leclerc or Hamilton, but whoever it is definitely going to get undercut. I mean, we just cannot hold up Yuki Tsunoda at the moment.
Okay, so
that Ferrari hasn't been undercut, or it's done pretty well not to be undercut as badly as I thought they would. Yuki Tsunoda will move his way through and back up then into P10 here. So we are going to be outside of the points once more. But yeah, I just don't want to drop backwards too quickly. I don't know if the AI got tweaked a little bit in terms of their wet weather performance, or whether we're just a little bit more competitive here at Interlagos. But yeah, we just cannot afford to sink like we did last weekend. Well, still, every single time we get to the end of a straight, having to defend from Jack Doohan, but very interesting there This apparently is the heaviest of all the rain that we're meant to see today, so it's meant to taper off in the next kind of 15 minutes. But unlike Mexico as well, tyre wear seems to be really low in the changeable conditions. If we had to go to the end of the GP on this set, then I could. Verstappen's still pulling away at the front. I think it's Leclerc versus Norris just behind. That is the real battle people will have their eye on.
Weather's changing now. We're going to have to change strategy, so it's time to box.
Okay, what do the team now think that's right side to be on is? They're saying full wets. I'll be honest, I'm not feeling too much pain on these intermediates at the moment, so I'm happy to kind of stay out here unless it gets a whole lot worse. But just as the team started talking about the rain's going to get easier, apparently it's getting harder. Well, there we go then, look at that by the end of the lap. We are seeing cars into the pit lane then, so is it time to make a switch to the full wets? I don't really want to at the moment. I'd rather claim the time.
Situation, but I don't think we've got cause to move on to a different tyre yet.
So Mark is giving me the most mixed messages in the world then, saying we do need to switch, we don't need to switch. He's got no idea what we need to be doing at this stage of the Grand Prix. But of course, all those guys now on wets, they'll have to box back to intermediates as well. So surely they're going to lose out even more time as we come out now right behind my rival in Alonso.
Keep your concentration out there, you're doing well.
Oh, there we go. So some cars then finally decided to peel back into the pit lane then and make the switch over to the intermediates, as that rain is definitely getting less and less. So we should hopefully get the jump back on Pierre Gasly and co. We should be ahead of Alonso, I believe. We should come out around where Lando Norris is in that McLaren. So we're still going to have to try and get our defensive shoes on. But clearly, yeah, this strategy I think has worked for us, has been a net gain by not pitting. I mean, we were running outside the points before everybody else pit. So this has definitely worked out well, even if it was still changeable conditions there, as Gasly and Lewis into the pit lane as well. Banging off the red line as we try and get the power down through the final corner. I could still definitely take these tyres to the end. No, he's not. He's behind me, Mark, so not too sure how that one works. But yeah, back ahead of Alonso, though. That is the critical one at the moment. Obviously, all these guys have to get temperature in their tyres. But I would quite happily bring the car home in P4. I would not complain if nothing else happened to the end of this race. Here we go. This is going to be the start of kind of working out where Fernando was strong and where he might not be. Around the outside, we'll go the Aston Martin in towards turn 1. But our entire season is completely reliant on moments like this. We'll get the elbows out. We'll try and go the long way around him off of turn 2. We'll carry the speed down the centre as then again to the inside. We're having to go defensive. Pierre Gasly looking at this opportunity now and thinking, how can he get involved? As Alonso, I don't know whether he ran wide or whether we forced him wide there and didn't realise. I was just trying to give him a bit of a squeeze, but either way, Gasly now is the car right behind us. This rain is definitely getting less and less though, but will it dry out with 10 laps to go? Oh, here we go, Pierre Gasly then. We've already had to try and defend from his teammate earlier on in this race. Oh, as Gasly, I mean, look how confident he is on the brakes there. Having to just release the pedals slightly to try and hang alongside him. Luckily, the AI seem to be tripping each other up through turn 2. But, this is going to be so tough as Alonso loses a spot to Lewis Hamilton as well. Gasly this time gets to the inside line. Hamilton thought about it, but is just biding his time here as we made just a little mistake. And Pierre Gasly will say thank you very much. A quicker car, 20 lap fresher tyres. He's always going to gain the advantage there as well. Parked the bus through Ferradura. And you can definitely see we are beginning to struggle. Well, we could definitely still see a switch to dries by the end of the afternoon, as here comes Fernando and Lewis Hamilton 3 wide as we head back in towards turn 1 there. As it looks like Alonso, I reckon in that contact with Gasly, lost a little bit of his wing. But down the middle again, we were just about hang on ahead of the two of them here, so hopefully Alonso is going to be slightly easier prey towards the end of the race. There goes Lewis Hamilton. Nothing we can do against the Ferrari yet again. But Alonso, can he make something happen? He's certainly going to try it. And he just goes by me. Despite the front wing damage, Fernando Alonso comfortably through. Whoa, but of course very slow in towards the next corner. Don't know why the AI is struggling so much on entry there. But that could have been our entire wing gone.
Weather's changing now. You might want to review our strategy.
Oh, there you go. Team now maybe suggesting the dry compound tyre. Let's have a look. Yep, mediums they want us on. Is it worth it, though? We're starting to see a few AI in. I reckon softs are going to be the way to go if you do box here. But yeah, rears are getting absolutely destroyed, so we've got to make the call. Will we see any of our front runners in, though? Looks like Verstappen and Leclerc, they've opted to stay out. Leclerc was still on his full wet tyres at this point. Let's not forget, but hopefully we're not going to see Alonso then into the pit lane. Gasly stays out, Hamilton in. So it is very 50-50 at the moment. Alonso stays out. I'm going to make the call then. We're going to dive into the pit lane at the end of this lap. Do whatever Fernando doesn't in that scenario there. And hopefully now we're going to have some nice tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix. We've definitely gained from not pitting on the full wets and then coming back to the intermediates. But how much will we gain by the end of the afternoon? Andrea, Kimi, Antonelli into the pits as well. There is definitely some weather still around the circuit.
Back into the race. That was a fantastic stop, faster than we were expecting. Look after these tyres now. We want to finish the race on this compound.
Oh, and now we're going to come out behind the other Aston Martin. Lance Stroll then will move up into the last points paying position. But hopefully we're going to have the grip over him. Well, I'm sure his team will be yelling at him, just telling him to hold us up, because this could be critical for Aston Martin in the long run this season. As all getting on the wet stuff there is not ideal, but I tell you what, this circuit has dried up tremendously quickly. Just gonna have to wait behind him for now then, as Alonso stayed out again. Okay, so Fernando Alonso is going to try and limp this one to the end of the afternoon. I know Verstappen's pit, I know Leclerc's pit in this Grand Prix. Lance Stroll then into the pits. So Alonso, he might be one of our only cars left out on the dries. As Gasly comes back out onto the circuit, he's pit. So it is just Fernando Alonso trying to brave it to the end. Well, less than 2 laps to go then here in Interlagos. And, well, things could still very quickly change here. Just depends on how much the intermediate tyre hits the cliff. You can see we're taking back to time out of Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz just in front, I believe. Tsunoda had also opted to stay out here. So all of these guys are going to be pretty defenceless towards the end, but the one I'm really interested in is, of course, Fernando Alonso there. As to the inside, oh, Piastri will go a big dive, but we just cannot afford to lose any time behind him. The gap to Tsunoda, about 8 seconds up the road. Surely we can't close that in with 1 lap remaining here. Interestingly, though, seems like every single car is going to get to the checkered flag, which is quite impressive, especially when you factor in the conditions we've seen today. But are we going to see anybody else begin to struggle on this last lap? Surely those intermediates have got to be bleeding by this point there. We should definitely get Sainz by the end. That gap only about 3 seconds here as we make our way through the Senna S. But at the front of the order, Max Verstappen. A critical race today for him. He needed to win this one. A, to deny Ferrari, to prove to them that they can still be beaten towards the end of the year. But B, to close in the gap on Lando Norris in the world title as well. Your top 3 at the end of the Grand Prix are your top 3 in the championship in reverse order. Max Verstappen will lead home Charles Leclerc, and Lando Norris will come through for 3rd. I mean, we're just not taking anything out of Sainz, though, on this last lap. I got no idea how the intermediates are hanging on as well as they are. We've barely taken a second and a half out of Yuki over this last lap or so, so no idea how that's working. Could Tsunoda get a run on Alonso back on the run towards the line? It's going to be mighty close between the pair of them. I think Tsunoda hasn't quite done it. Alonso will hang on. We will only manage P9 after everything that happened.
It's another victory and a champion's performance from Max Verstappen.
I mean, it looked like they were in a different category at points during the race, led every lap. I mean, what more can we say?
We had drama from start to finish, but in the end, there was only ever one that could take that top spot. One of the all-time greats celebrates yet again. It's another podium, it's another top step for Max Verstappen.
Well, there we are then. Max Verstappen on a 4-stop strategy today. No one could stop the Dutchman, and he will claim victory. Charles Leclerc in P2 ahead of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton. As I said, I think that all but guarantees that Hamilton's title dreams are well and truly put to bed. Gasly, a brilliant P5 for him. Alonso hangs on ahead of Tsunoda by just 17 thousandths of a second come the checkered flag as well. Could those 2 points make the difference by the end of the year? Sainz in 8th, myself in P9, just ahead of Oscar Piastri. And I mean, I love the fact the AI wanted to risk some different strategies inside this game. Verstappen won on a 4-stop. We only made 2 pit stops in the Grand Prix today, but Bortoletto, Behrman, Hadjar and Hauger all finishing 1 lap down. What does that do to our World Championship? Well, it means the gap now 8 points at the top of the table between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen back within a 1-race win margin as well. Hamilton 55 back with what, 83 available still between now and the end of the year. It is not over, but it is not looking great for him there. Alonso now 12 points ahead of ourselves in the World Championship. Doesn't do us any favours either, as constructors-wise there you can see Aston Martin 12 ahead of 212. Williams now only 14 points back, and Haas as well as Alpine still not a million miles away. A lot can change in these final 3 races. Thank you all so much for watching though. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed, and we'll be back very soon when Formula 1 returns ready in Las Vegas, of course. Hopefully that race will be brilliant.